Sup, sports fans? This is Steven, here to offer some quick thoughts on a few topics of the day from basketball and NBA season itself. Starting off with, as my title suggests, Kyrie Irving, how he is proving in his own unintended way that LeBron James is the best player that's ever played, as I suggested he is in my previous video, where I compared and contrasted the careers of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, to basically give a little background information on Kyrie Irving in terms of what prompted me to record this. The latest loss to the Houston Rockets on Saturday, I believe it was. No, I'm sorry, it was Sunday. On Sunday, is basically making those who feel the Boston Celtics are better off without Kyrie than with them, making them feel like they're more correct in their believing so, based off of the postseason run that the Celtics made without Kyrie last year, and how they are seemingly struggling to get that same level of play this year with him. I wouldn't want to debate too strongly one way or the other whether that's a true statement or not. It's a different team. You don't just simply add great player X to a very good team and have that team become even better just because there's a dynamic that changes. Coaching style has to change. Player interaction has to change. So many moving parts that you just can't account for. It's not a simple math equation. It's much more complex than that. So it's hard for to discern the truthfulness in whether having less individual talent that a Kyrie Irving brings may make for a more cohesive team. It's happened before, so it's not far-fetched to think so. But again, I didn't really want to get on there to debate that as much as I wanted to prove something that I had held true all along, and that Kyrie Irving is just the latest example of a score-first player not having success, even though his talent seems to suggest that there would be great success, compared to LeBron James, who is not a score-first player by personality, but he has a scorer's ability, but also it looks to get the most out of his teammates actively instead of just having it happen indirectly. He wants to directly involve his teammates, and how that makes for a better team. Kyrie Irving, again, steps into a great situation where he missed, unfortunately, a great part of the season, including the end of the season last year. So you figure a year with the Celtics, a year getting used to the way things are run there under Coach Stevens, that he should just, again, come in, maybe struggle for first quarter of the season, first half of the season, but then start to find their stride and start ascending towards that peak playoff form as you get closer to the playoffs. But it's simply not happening as of yet. Michael Jordan, I drew the comparison with LeBron James. Michael Jordan, with the obvious score first mentality, for all his greatness, and he is great. I'm not saying Kobe isn't great. I'm not saying Kyrie Irving isn't great. I'm not saying Michael Jordan is not great. They're all great. Kyrie still has a lot more to prove to be on the same level as Kobe and Michael Jordan. I don't want to get that twisted. But they're still great individual players. Michael Jordan, for all his greatness, never took a team that was inferior and defeated a team in the playoffs. Never did. Not once, except with a possible exception of the Cavaliers in the first round one year, where the Cavaliers had the higher seed, better record. That Cavaliers team had Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Ron Harper, Hot Rod Williams, Larry Nance, players like that. They never won anything. Other than the division title, they never won a conference title. They never went to the NBA Finals, of course. And so Michael Jordan beating that team in the first round doesn't really lend too much weight to him being a great player, able to elevate a team against a great team. His best chance to do so was the season before the Bulls won their first title. They were playing Detroit, the Bad Boys, in Game 7, Scottie Pippen's migraine. I covered this in my previous video too, so I do break it down in that along with other points as well, where I think Jordan was better than LeBron and other areas where LeBron is better than Jordan. And then I just give my overall assessment of who's the better at the end of the day. But Jordan had to only win one game. He had to win Game 7 against the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons on the Detroit Pistons home floor. Scottie Pippen had a migraine headache. He still played 42 minutes, played terribly. You're only asking the best player to ever do it to win you one game, not win you a whole series, definitely not even win you an entire succession of series on your way to the finals. Just win me one game in that playoff season. And he couldn't do it. He never did. Jordan, for all his greatness, never elevated his teammates. His teammates elevated themselves, basically by following Jordan's work ethic, I guess, to get better, but also that cohesiveness of staying together for year after year after year. But only until his players get better did Jordan ever start winning. And I don't know why Jordan is giving so much credit for being this great player, because great players should be making teams great because you exist, not the other team, not the other players on the team making you great because they exist, which is exactly what happened. I won't get into too much details, please. I'll supply the link for my other video. I go into it rather detailed, several different examples that shows why Jordan isn't as great as people suggest he is in terms of how you want to define greatness, in my opinion. Kobe, the same way. He won 3 titles in a row with Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant force possibly to ever played center. You could argue that case. Let alone being the best center in the league. He was the best, maybe the most dominant center of all time. And Kobe's with him, and for all Kobe's greatness, he's not winning without Shaq. How do I know? Shaq and Kobe go their separate ways. Kobe's a much better player when they win in separate ways than they were when they played. Why? He has more experience in the league. He's older. He's grown more into the Kobe that we all think of. Yet when Shaquille O'Neal leaves, Kobe struggles to get out of the first round of the playoffs. That's a drastic drop off from being 3-time world champions to not even being able to get out of the first round of the playoffs without him. If you're that great, if you're the second greatest player of all time, you're getting out of the first round of the playoffs. Certainly, aren't you? No, you're not. Not when you're a score first mentality, which is and doesn't elevate his players. Kobe Bryant goes on the air with Stephen A. Smith. He sounds so despondent. I was worried for his mental well-being or his emotional well-being. I'm not joking here. If you ever get to listen to that interview again, just listen to Kobe's tone. He just sounds so despondent. And he's asking and then Stephen A. finally asks him, "Are you asking for a trade?" And Kobe says, "Yes." As things worked out, of course, he doesn't get traded. The Lakers make a trade, get Pau Gasol. Kobe gets 2 more rings. So only again, when Pau Gasol joins, does Kobe start winning again. People don't want to seem to recognize that. They just say Kobe's great because the brain, I guess, only wants to focus on one player with the ball, taking the shot. He makes it, he's great. And that's all they really want to go by. They don't really want to look at the fact that the NBA basketball and basketball in general is a 5-on-5 game. So the best player doesn't just do for themselves. The best player does for himself and everyone else on his team on the floor at the time, as LeBron does. LeBron takes teams that have no business being successful in the playoffs, and he takes them to the NBA Finals. First time with Cleveland, they get swept by the Spurs. That should have happened. The Spurs were that much better than Cleveland. The question is, how did Cleveland get there in the first place? They had to go through Detroit that had just beaten the Lakers with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe a couple years ago before LeBron scores 25 points in a row and elevates his team to the finals. That's what great players do. They elevate that's what the best player of all time does. He elevates teams that have no business being successful into the finals. He then takes on the best record ever in the Golden State Warriors team. He doesn't have as bad of a team as he had the first time, but his team is not as well-rounded and as great as Golden State's team from top to bottom in the roster. He lifts them up. You guys know the story. Down 3-1, he brings them back and he wins. the last year in Cleveland before he came to LA. It's probably his most impressive feat because they don't have the home court advantage after round one. They go to seven games in round one, where LeBron James plays well game 7 as usual, and they takes them to the second round, and then they win second and third round without the home court advantage, including another game 7 against those same Boston Celtics without Kyrie Irving. Without LeBron James, Boston Celtics are in the finals without Kyrie Irving playing. But again, LeBron James again shows what one player who did not have Kevin Love for the bulk of that playoff series season last year, didn't have Kyrie, of course, as he left. So it's just LeBron and the other players on the team who basically aren't distinguished in their own right, because they just aren't. And maybe they will be in time, but they aren't now. But that's what great players do. And I just wanted to bring that up, where this whole thing with Kyrie, whether it's true or not, it's just another example. If you're scoring first, even though the casual fan can't comprehend what's going on other than when the one guy has the ball, whether or not he shoots it and whether or not it goes in, it's much more basketball to that in terms of greatness. This season, as it's playing out with the Lakers, LeBron, it doesn't look good to me that he's going to make it. That's just being truthful. LeBron doesn't look like the same player at all. Maybe he's finally starting that decline on the downside of his career, whether it be the injury or just the fact that he's getting older. That's nature. That's the cycle of life. Nothing's going to last forever, including LeBron James being the best player in the league. But as that state, I think the injury itself did more damage to the growth of the Lakers, because they were on a high note. They were blowing out the Golden State Warriors on Christmas Day, and that was when he gets hurt, and that's probably the last we ever saw of the Lakers playing at that high of a level so far this season. But even with that withstanding, my statement would still stand that LeBron James is the best that's ever played. I wanted to just share these thoughts with you. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Check out the description for the link to the other video with LeBron James and comparing him to Michael Jordan. I have some other videos I've done as well. There'll be links there. Please hit the subscribe button and the like button. And as always, treat each other with respect and be good to each other.